for 3.5 years. Crazy to say that. On and off, I should say. Okay, so started with Zepbound, the shots, like the single shots, where it comes in a little 4-pack. You take a shot, take that, and you're done for the week, right? And then you have another one, 4 for 1 month. That's what I started off as. I then drastically lost weight. 4-ish months, I lost about 40 pounds, give or take, I can't remember exactly. Because my life has been a yo-yo. I had ED when I was younger that then just kind of fed throughout my 20s around just a disordered way of thinking, right, around my food. And anyways, Zepbound. I then went, after that, I thought, great, lost the pounds, I know what to do, because I did. I mean, realistically, I know what to do when it comes to losing weight, maintaining that weight. I've done it many, many, many times before. The issue that always is the issue, whenever I lose weight, no matter how I was losing it, whatever, is that when I lose the weight, my brain then goes into, you lost the weight, you're good to go. Now you can do whatever you want. But really what's happening in your brain is it's saying, okay, we did starvation, like we did this animalistic thing, right? Now we need to bump you back up because we're no longer in this survival depletion of calories. Now we need to move you back up to where we feel like you're normal, where you should be. So for me, my normal is about like 170, 180, around there. Where I want to sit is 160, 165. And that is even with me feeling like that's the weight. We're not talking about the muscle that I want to gain with my arms, right? Tightening up my arms, tightening up my legs. We're talking about the fat that I wanted to get rid of. Because I understand if I'm to gain muscle, that will weigh more, blah, 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 all the stuff. Anyways, 2023, December, lost about 10 pounds. 2024, January-ish, I then got on Zepbound. I was on Mounjaro, Zepbound. Lost a bunch of weight, 40-ish pounds, which is a ton of weight. In my humble opinion, I was about 200, and I needed to be out of the 200s for my mental health. I was about 220, I want to say, when I got pregnant with my second child, which was I got pregnant right after I quit drinking alcohol. And I maintained that 225, 230 my whole pregnancy because I had extra weight, right? But then after having my baby, that next year, year and a half-ish, I maintained 200 pounds. I just could not go any lower. Could not. With all my tips and tricks, with all my years of yo-yoing, right? Could not. So then I talked to my doctor. My doctor said there's this thing, Mounjaro, blah, blah, blah. So 2024 was a year of figuring out and really trying to do all of the website things, the Join Fridays. I never did Row.co. I did Join Fridays a few different times. I did hers. It just, for me personally, didn't work. Join Fridays did work in that I was getting the compound. I did semaglutide, which is Wegovy, Ozempic, tirzepatide, Zepbound, Mounjaro. Mounjaro is the diabetic drug. Ozempic is the diabetic drug? Not sure. Anyways, semaglutide, tirzepatide, did them both. Super sick on both when it comes to the compound. Super sick. I was actually the sickest on a semaglutide, which is interesting because it has less of the stuff. I want to be fully transparent. this is my experience. This is not a channel for facts when it comes to science. Countess of Shopping does an amazing job when it comes to the scientific facts. Like, she's amazing on that. Me, just my experience as a mom of 2, sober, went back to school right after I became sober to get my master's in social work, and then this is my experience, right? In hopes that then maybe you can kind of come in on understanding, oh yeah, you're not alone in this, right? There's other people out there who are experiencing these things. So 2024, I then was on these different compounds. I kind of fluctuated, like my lowest was 160, and then I would kind of creep up to 170, creep up to 180, creep down, kind of do all those creeping, because my body was like, wait, we haven't been 160 in a long time. When last time we were 160 would have been before my first child, which would have been 9 years ago. So my body wasn't used to that weight to stay at. So basically what I'm saying is that I don't feel like I gave myself enough time on Zepbound to show my body, like, no, we want to stay at this weight. Like, I should have done more maintenance work with the medication than getting off of it, going to a compound a few months later, and then another compound a few months later, and then 2025 kind of doing the same thing. Like, I would get the medication, do the medication. That's just been my life. And so why wouldn't it be any different on this medication? Well, once you get this amazing mindset and pattern, that habit, the ritual around, like, this is what we eat, and this is how much we eat, and this is when we eat, this is what we eat, like, really down, the medication is just so helpful for me when it comes to getting rid of that food noise. Getting rid of that food noise. If you know, you know. Food noise is when you are thinking about food. It might not be 24/7. It might feel dramatic. But for those of us who do have food noise, it's true. It is like a 24/7, like, what am I going to eat for lunch? What am I going to have for a snack? When am I going to, which is very similar to how I felt when it came to alcohol, hence why I stopped. But you can't stop eating. That's the difference. Even though alcohol is the one drug that you have to give a reason as to why you're not doing it, right? There's a ton of drugs out there where if you said that you stopped or you are no longer using that drug, people would say, oh, good for you. That must have been hard, right? But with alcohol, it's like, oh gosh, what happened? Are you okay? You good? Did you go to jail? Did you go to treatment? And then they may have to kind of reflect on what their relationship is like with that alcohol. Needless to say, I had a conversation for the first time with my mom and my sister yesterday about being on these medications. The first time. I'm very close with them. I never wanted to be told, no, you can't, no, you shouldn't, that's going to be bad for you, that's right, all of those things, and or basically like, this is a thing that you're using to lose weight and then you'll gain the weight back, you know, all this kind of negative stuff. I just did not want to hear. I just didn't want to hear it. And so I didn't say anything. And yesterday I did. Yesterday I told them. My mom is a dietitian. Hence why I didn't want to talk to her about it, because, you know, she's old school when it comes to nutrition and what you should be doing and how you should be losing weight. as well as her world as of the last 10, 15 years has really been around EDs, and she has been seeing a lot of abuse when it comes to these medications. A lot of abuse. And I knew that 3.5 years ago. Therefore, I wasn't going to talk about it because I knew I wasn't going to be abusing this medication. I knew I wasn't going to be using it to then help myself not eat, like in general, not eat. I knew that because I have 2 daughters who are watching me. And yet I didn't want to talk to her about it, but I did yesterday because she said that she's been talking to this doctor. She has these clients as of right now who have been super successful on the medication. Super successful. And I was like, awesome, good for them. And then she asked, did you try any of those medications? And I said, yes, I did. Yes, I am. Yes, I have. I've been on it. I'm on it. I'm on Zepbound. She said, oh, okay. And we just had an open, honest conversation. And then she said, you should like let your sister know this, that's how you lost that weight. Because my sister it's been a year, so she's a year and a month postpartum, and she's really been struggling in terms of trying to lose this weight. And obviously, the first year after having babies, it's like there's no time really to think about yourself. Other than she is an amazing athlete when it comes to being very strict when it comes to her routine, exercising, making time for herself when she can, as well as food. Like, she's an amazing cook, and she would do amazing on this medication, hands down. And she's never had an ED. So I talked to my sister last night. She's going to talk to a doctor about it in the coming, month or whatever. And so my sister's going to talk to a doctor. I'm not pushing any of this, but I just feel like she would be an amazing candidate for this medication because she has about 40, 50 pounds, she said, that just isn't going anywhere with her diet and exercise, mental health, sleep. Right now, babies are older, she's sleeping more. Anyways, I'm excited because I love being a support for people. And for my sister, I'm excited for her. This channel is to really help those of us who had those extra 40, 50 pounds, or we wanted to break a certain number. And for me, that was 200 pounds. And then there are these other amazing humans on YouTube who had and wanted to lose 100 and something pounds, right? Like a lot of weight. And I feel like that experience is, if that's you, there's so many amazing channels who offer that, because I understand that 100 pounds then has a lot of other things that you would then have to go through that might be like skin things, as well as joints. Like there's other things that you'll need to like grow in understanding a little bit more about, that I don't have that experience with. But what I do have experience with is becoming sober, choosing to no longer have this relationship. It was a very toxic relationship with alcohol. Always has been, ever since I was a teenager. Because I guess I wasn't really shy, but it helped me have a social life. And so I then really abused it. And then especially during this like 3-4 year time frame, in my late teens, early 20s, where I had an ED, I was really abusing alcohol, and barely like going to college. I was just like, my goal was more of like a social life versus education. And so it took me a long time to finish school, because just if you aren't familiar with my story, I have been sober here and there throughout my 20s and early 30s, where it was like 3 years here, 4 years there, 2 years, something like that. And then it would be short stints of thinking I can drink normal, like a normie. I can't. I've tried, and I can't. And then I realized in 2020, oh, I'm using this thing because my anxiety was so high, instead of going and talking to my provider about my anxiety. And then I ended up talking to her about it, and I told her all the, everything that I was drinking, how much I was drinking and consuming, and so then the medication we had to figure out. And then therapy. Medication, therapy. They work so well together. Same with GLP-1. So if we're using a GLP-1, it makes sense that then we would need to have like a dietitian or a nutritionist on board, as well as a therapist, to better understand that relationship that we've had with food. So I really encourage you, if you are just starting this journey, whether it's sobriety or a GLP-1, to go find a therapist, because as a therapist, I know how deeply empowering it is to have a therapist. Because I've had my therapist since I was a teenager. She went through so much with me, and I still go back to her for like little pick-me-up kind of things, where it's like, hey, I'm going through this thing. Can we talk about it? Can we figure out some coping skills, or can we whatever? And that's been amazing. And then as a nutritionist, I had my mom, so I've had many years of understanding, all of like the protein and the fiber and the fats and the carbs and all the things that you're supposed to have in your diet. And I feel great about that. I do encourage you, though, to either find a support group, which I want to start an in-person one here where I live, because I just think it could just be just an amazing way of having other people who are in the same lived experience to be able to talk about that lived experience and not have shame around it. Because I know that personally, when it comes to this medication, there's a lot of people who think like that's the easy way out, or oh my gosh, like you're only using it to get super skinny and then you won't be healthy and blah 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 blah, right? Which just isn't true. Like, I'm 165, 5'8", and technically I'm overweight, right? If the BMI, looking at that, I'm supposed to be 120 to 164 for the normal weight. Wild. So that's why I'm just so happy where I'm at. I have a little extra right on my stomach, my legs, my boobs, my arms, my face. Like, I'm not gaunt, and that makes me happy.